The day I found out I was invisible was the day my parents sold my future to pay for my brother's fourth comeback. I was standing in the kitchen, holding a letter from a university I'd prayed to attend for 6 years. Full scholarship. My mother glanced at it, then looked at my father and said 4 words that shattered my entire existence. Ryan needs it more. Ryan needed $20,000 for another business seminar. I needed them to see me. That was the day I stopped being their daughter. I just hadn't told them yet. My name is Elena Marchetti. I'm 26 now, but this story starts when I was 18, working the closing shift at a bookstore in a sleepy Connecticut town called Millbrook. If you've ever felt like a ghost in your own home, watching your sibling drain every resource and still get celebrated for breathing, then you know exactly where I'm coming from. Stick around because what happened 3 years later, on a rainy Tuesday morning with a single phone call, still gives me chills. And before I get to that part, drop a comment with the city you're watching from. I'd genuinely love to know where in the world this story is finding you tonight. My brother Ryan was the golden child. 3 years older, impossibly charming, and allergic to accountability. My parents, Linda and Frank, had refinanced their house twice for his entrepreneurial visions. A protein shake company that lasted 4 months. A pressure washing business that accidentally damaged a historic landmark. A digital marketing agency that was just him posting on Instagram from our basement. Each failure was reframed as a learning experience. Each success, however microscopic, was proof of his genius. For me, the rules were different. I got a participation certificate in a state essay contest sophomore year. My father didn't look up from his newspaper. My mother said, "That's nice, honey. Did you pick up Ryan's dry cleaning?" I'm not exaggerating. Those were her actual words. Flashback 1. I'm 15. I'd been babysitting every weekend for 8 months, saving for a used laptop to write on. I had $380 tucked in a jewelry box under my bed. One Friday, I came home from school and it was gone. Ryan had borrowed it for a date. He wanted to take a girl to a seafood restaurant in Hartford. When I confronted my parents, my father actually laughed. "Elena, he's building relationships. Those connections will pay off someday." I didn't speak for 3 days. Nobody noticed. Flashback 2. Junior year. Parent-teacher conference night. My English teacher, Mrs. Albright, pulled my mother aside and told her I had genuine talent. Said my short story about a widowed lighthouse keeper showed a depth she rarely saw in high school students. She suggested a summer writing program at Columbia. My mother nodded politely, walked to the car, and spent the entire drive home talking about Ryan's new girlfriend, whose father owned a car dealership. "Opportunity," she kept saying. "This could be an opportunity for Ryan." Flashback 3. I'm 17, working 25 hours a week at a diner called Mabel's, scraping grease off a flat-top grill, while my classmates went to football games and parties. I was saving for a car, something cheap, something that could get me to community college and back. I had $2,000 in a savings account my parents co-signed when I was 16. One afternoon, I went to withdraw $300 for a down payment on a rusted-out Corolla I'd found. The account was empty, $0. My mother had transferred the money to Ryan so he could attend a leadership conference in Phoenix. She said she meant to tell me. She said I'd understand someday. I walked to the park behind the library and sat on a swing until my hands went numb from the cold. No one came looking. The day of the scholarship letter, something in me calcified. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I walked to my room, sat on the edge of my bed, and stared at the wall for a very long time. Then I opened my laptop, applied for every grant and work-study program I could find, and promised myself one thing. I would never, ever need them again. I left for university on a Greyhound bus with one suitcase and a backpack. My father shook my hand like I was a business associate. My mother was on the phone with Ryan, who was in Florida now, apprenticing with a real estate investor who turned out to be running a timeshare scam. She waved at me over her shoulder. I sat in seat 23, watched Connecticut roll past a rain-streaked window, and let the silence fill me up. College was a grind. I worked 2 campus jobs, lived in the cheapest off-campus apartment I could find, a converted sunroom with no heat, and a family of squirrels in the wall, and wrote constantly. Short stories, essays, the beginnings of novels I'd abandon at 30 pages. After graduation, I landed an editorial assistant position at Whitmore Publishing in Manhattan. It paid $34,000 a year, which in New York City is essentially poverty with a business casual dress code. I didn't care. I was in the door. For the next 3 years, I climbed. Quietly, methodically. I volunteered for every undesirable project, the slush pile manuscripts no one wanted to read, the authors who screamed at editorial assistants, the weekend copy edits. I arrived early, stayed late, and kept a running document on my phone called Lessons in Invisibility. Lesson 1. People reveal everything when they think you don't matter. Lesson 2. Talent without leverage is just a hobby. Lesson 3. Documentation is the quiet person's artillery. I didn't call my parents. They didn't call me. I found out Ryan had gotten married through a Facebook notification. He married a dental hygienist named Courtney. My mother posted 17 photos from the wedding. I wasn't invited. I liked the post, turned off my phone, and went for a long walk along the East River. The water was black and churning. I felt nothing. Then came the rainy Tuesday. I was at my desk, a gray cubicle on the 16th floor, eating a sad salad and line editing a truly terrible thriller about a psychic submarine captain. My work phone rang. I answered with my professional voice. Elena Marchetti, Whitmore Editorial. A woman's voice, calm and precise. Ms. Marchetti, this is Catherine Walsh from Drummond Literary Agency. Am I reaching you at a good time? Drummond Literary was one of the most respected agencies in the industry. They represented Pulitzer winners. I sat up straighter. Yes, absolutely. How can I help you? I'm calling regarding a manuscript that crossed my desk recently. Catherine said, a novel called The Glass Lake. I believe you submitted it to us through our open reading period 18 months ago. I froze. 18 months ago, during a particularly dark winter, I'd finished a novel. A quiet, devastating story about a woman who disappears from her life and builds a new one in a fishing village in Nova Scotia. I'd sent it to 5 agents as a shot in the dark. 4 had rejected it. Drummond had never responded, and I'd assumed it was dead. Yes, I managed. That's mine. It's extraordinary, Catherine said. I read it in one sitting. My senior partner read it. Our foreign rights director read it. We'd like to represent you, and we'd like to take this to auction next month. I have 4 editors who've already expressed preemptive interest based on the partial I've been circulating informally. One of them is your own house. Though, of course, we'd need to handle that carefully with your position. The fluorescent lights above me hummed. The rain streaked down the windows. Somewhere in the office, a printer was jamming and someone was cursing. I couldn't speak. Miss Marchetti? Catherine prompted. I'm here, I whispered. Yes, I'm here. That phone call was the first domino, but it wasn't the one that broke me open. That came 2 days later when I called my parents for the first time in 8 months. I called my mother's cell phone. She answered on the 4th ring, sounding distracted. Elena, is everything okay? Hi, Mom. Yeah, everything's fine. I have some news. Do you have a minute? A pause. In the background, I could hear the television. A football game, I think. Can I call you back? Your father and I are at Ryan and Courtney's. Courtney's pregnant. We just found out. It's a boy. The word landed in my chest like a stone dropped into deep water. pregnant. A boy. I hadn't known they were trying. I hadn't known anything. "That's wonderful," I said, and my voice sounded like it was coming from very far away. "Congratulations. What's your news?" she asked, and I could tell she was already turning back toward the room, toward the celebration, toward Ryan. I opened my mouth. A literary agent, an auction, my book, my life's work. The sentences were right there, waiting to be spoken. "Nothing," I said. "It can wait. Tell Ryan I'm happy for him." She said goodbye before I finished the sentence. I held the phone in my lap and watched the rain. Something shifted in me that night, something permanent. 3 months later, the Glass Lake sold at auction for a sum that made my hands shake when I saw the number on the contract. The paperback rights went for even more. Film rights were optioned by a production company that had adapted 2 novels into Oscar-nominated films. I didn't tell my parents. I didn't post on social media. I told exactly 4 people. My best friend from college, my landlord, my boss, and my therapist. The quiet felt holy. Whitmore Publishing was thrilled to be the house that won the auction, though the legal department had to construct a firewall between my editorial role and my identity as an author. I was assigned an editor named Patricia, a formidable woman in her 60s who had shepherded several major literary debuts. She treated me not as a colleague, but as a client. It was disorienting and wonderful. The book published in March. The launch party was at a small, independent bookstore in Brooklyn. Exposed brick, string lights, the smell of old paper, and new coffee. 40 people came. My friend from college flew in from Chicago. Patricia was there, drinking red wine and smiling, which I'd been told was extremely rare. My parents were not there because they didn't know. Ryan was not there because I hadn't spoken to my brother in 2 years. The reviews started rolling in. The New York Times called it a quiet masterpiece of reinvention. The Washington Post used words like luminous and essential. My favorite was a small literary blog that said the book felt like sitting in a silent house after years of noise. I read that one 4 times. The money was life-changing, but I didn't change my life. I stayed in my cramped apartment. I kept my job. I didn't buy anything extravagant. I invested most of it. I opened a scholarship fund for first-generation college students from rural Connecticut. I did it anonymously. I didn't want my name on anything. I'd had enough of being invisible. I was learning, slowly, that there's a difference between being overlooked and being selective about who gets to see you. That the universe, as it always does, had one more confrontation waiting for me. 6 months after publication, I was invited to speak at a literary festival in Hartford, a hometown event, though I'd long since stopped thinking of Connecticut as home. The festival was held in a renovated theater downtown. Old velvet seats, gold leaf on the ceiling, a stage that had held vaudeville acts and silent films. I agreed to do a reading and a Q&A. I didn't announce it widely. I didn't send my parents an invitation, but the local paper ran a story. Millbrook native Elena Marchetti returns for festival appearance after acclaimed debut. They used my author photo, a black and white shot where I'm looking directly into the camera, unsmiling but not unkind. Someone in my hometown saw it. Someone showed my mother. The night of the reading, I stepped onto the stage in a dark blue dress I'd bought specifically for the occasion. The theater was half full, maybe 200 people. I read the first chapter of the book, the part where the protagonist walks into the sea fully clothed and keeps walking until the water reaches her shoulders. And then she stops because she realizes she doesn't want to die. She just wants to disappear. When I finished, the silence in the room was thick and complete. Then the applause came, and I remembered to breathe. The Q&A was lovely. Thoughtful questions about craft, about character, about the Nova Scotia setting. I was starting to relax when a man raised his hand in the back row. The lights were in my eyes. I couldn't see his face. I pointed to him. "Elena," he said, and I knew the voice immediately. "Do you think your family will recognize themselves in this book?" The room shifted. People turned to look at the man in the back row. Ryan, my brother. He was standing now, and next to him, my mother and father. Linda in a floral blouse, clutching her purse. Frank, arms crossed, jaw tight. They had come. Of course they had come. I gripped the edges of the podium. I had imagined this moment 1,000 times, in 1,000 different ways. Confrontations in restaurants, accusations at holiday gatherings I never attended, tearful phone calls I never answered. But this, a public reckoning, was something I had not prepared for. I leaned into the microphone. "The book is fiction," I said. My voice was steady. "Any resemblance to real persons, living or dead, is coincidental." Ryan laughed. A sharp, ugly sound. "Right, fiction. A family that ignores the daughter and pours everything into the son who keeps failing. Real creative, Elena." A murmur rippled through the audience. The moderator, a young woman in cat-eye glasses, looked at me with alarm. "Ms. Marchetti, would you like to take a break?" I shook my head. I looked at my father. "Dad, do you have something you want to ask me?" Frank shifted his weight. He looked smaller than I remembered. Older. "Your mother and... I didn't know you were in town," he said, and it was such a strange, irrelevant thing to say that I almost laughed. "I've been in New York for 3 years," I said. "You didn't know that either." My mother stepped forward. "We tried to call," she said, and her voice was thin, defensive. "After we saw the article, your number was disconnected." "I changed it 2 years ago," I said. "I emailed you the new one." "You never responded." The silence that followed was the loudest sound I'd ever heard. 200 people not breathing. "What do you want from us?" my mother asked finally. "An apology?" We did our best. We weren't perfect parents, but we did our best. And there it was. The question that had been burning in my chest since I was 15 years old. Sweeping floors and counting tips while my brother drained their savings. What did I want? I stepped out from behind the podium. I walked to the edge of the stage. The footlights were warm against my skin. "I don't want anything from you," I said, and I meant it. I wanted a laptop when I was 15. I wanted my savings account when I was 17. I wanted you to read one essay, one story, one thing I had written. I wanted you to come to my high school graduation. Instead of flying to Phoenix to bail Ryan out of jail for that timeshare thing he got caught up in. I wanted a lot of things, Mom, but I stopped wanting them a long time ago. Ryan's face had gone pale. "You don't have to do this here," he said. "You came here," I said. "You stood up. You asked the question. So here's your answer, Ryan. The book isn't about you. It's not about Mom and Dad. It's about a woman who was erased so completely that she had to build herself from nothing. And the thing about building yourself from nothing is that once you've done it, you don't owe the people who erased you a single solitary thing. Not your success. Not your anger. Not even your forgiveness." I turned back to the audience. The moderator was staring at me with something that looked like awe. "I believe that's all the time we have," I said. "Thank you for coming." The applause that night was different. It was hesitant at first, uncertain, and then it built into something thunderous. I walked off stage left into the wings and leaned against a brick wall. My hands were shaking. My heart was pounding, but my eyes were dry. I didn't see my family again after that. I heard through the grapevine that Ryan's latest venture, a cryptocurrency consulting firm, had collapsed and taken his marriage with it. Courtney filed for divorce and moved to Oregon with their son. My parents sold the house in Millbrook and moved into a condo in Florida. No one sent me the address. I published my second novel 18 months later. It was about a family of fishermen in Maine, and it had nothing whatsoever to do with my life. The dedication page read simply, "To the woman I became when no one was looking." I still live in New York. I still work at Whitmore, though I've been promoted twice. I still write in the early mornings before the city wakes up. I have a small circle of friends who know the whole story and love me anyway. I'm learning to let people in, slowly. It's difficult unlearning invisibility. Some days, I still feel like that girl on the swing in the park, waiting for someone to come looking. But here's what I know now. The quiet revenge isn't the book, or the money, or the reviews. It's not the moment on the stage when they finally saw me. The revenge is that I stopped needing them to see me at all. I built a life so full, so genuine, so entirely mine, that their absence became just another fact. Like the weather. Like the color of the walls. Nothing I needed to fix. If you've carried the weight of being unseen, if someone made you feel like you didn't matter, I want you to hear this. You don't need their validation to become who you're meant to be. Start building. Quietly, patiently, one brick at a time. And one day, you'll look around and realize you're standing in a life you built with your own two hands. And no one can take that from you. If this story resonated with you, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. And if you've ever had a moment where you chose yourself after years of being overlooked, share that too. Stories like ours are more common than we think, and they deserve to be told. Thank you for being here with me today. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you in the next one.